Welcome to Babylon 5 versus Deep Space Nine. This is Bob from Cascadia, and I got Matt from the Southland on the line. Matt, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Ready to talk about some Babylon 5, some DS9. Let's get it started.
Yeah. I wanted to ask first of all, you were I think a little reluctant to take this project on for Babylon 5 because neither of us are that familiar with it. You want to talk about like what won you over or convinced you to watch Babylon 5?
Yeah, I've been a sci-fi fan my whole life, and when you mentioned Babylon 5, I try to think back in my mind, where have I seen that? And I constantly get Babylon 5. I think it's called Farscape
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Stargate. All of those ran together in my mind, so I had to kind of do my Google image search real quick to see which cast of
Gotcha.
shoot.
All right. So you were saying that you always had a hard time in your mind differentiating between Babylon 5, Farscape, and Stargate, which I think has a prefix too. It's like SG1 or something.
Yeah. All of those just kind of ran together. So I had to kind of do a Google image search and see which cast we're actually talking about, what, jogged my memory about which one was which. And then, like with anything like this, one of the first things I have to do is find out if there were actually action figures or toys to that series, because that's always my thing. I'm like, okay, if they have action figures, it must have been an okay show, because they were trying to, they're trying to sell merchandise. So they had action figures. So that was a good thing. And that's where I told you a little bit about the snake creature thing that just scares the bejesus out of me. I'm afraid of snakes, and
I was just saying for the listeners at home, you're talking about Ambassador Kosh, who's the Vorlon ambassador on Babylon 5, I think, who to you looks snake-like. I
yes,
don't see
I
it so
found that
much
out,
myself.
and it looks like a boa constrictor on top of a coat. Like, it doesn't look right. Like, it always bothered me. I just remember, I remember seeing an image of him in a comic book somewhere, and it just scared me. So anyway, that was the action figures. That was one part that won me over. The other thing is, I always like to see if there was a video game, because if I need to see if there's a PC game. Found out there was a PC game that was actually canceled, that was made by Sierra. If you
Mm.
remember Sierra, Space Quest, King's Quest, all those Quest games that were so good in our childhood, uh, that they actually were going to have a Babylon 5 game for that, but it didn't. It got canned. But anyway, that was a good thing. And then the other thing were their board games. And yes, there is a huge Babylon 5 board game miniature type thing that they have out. So there's always something I can collect, and if I know I can collect something, I'm usually good with it. So that won me over. And then just once you Google Babylon 5, you start to see that there are similarities and differences, and it's always been compared to DS9. And DS9 was one of my favorite Star Trek series. So if there's some comparisons to be made there, I'd like to see them, and that's why I think we're here at the podcast.
Yeah, great. So you've only watched what, like 4 or 5 Babylon 5 episodes now?
Yeah, I've really only seen the first 4 episodes. I haven't watched the TV movie yet, but I watched the 4 first, I guess, regular episodes. I'm actually pretty interested. It's different for sure. It's definitely not the. You can tell there's a difference in quality compared to DS9 as far as like I guess set design, and even the creatures are they're way more humanoid to me than a lot of the characters you see on Star Trek, which is kind of surprising. But uh, there's the one guy, Londo, who really to me is just like a human with weird hair. I mean, that's the whole thing I see with him right now. I haven't really learned much about him. I kept waiting to see if they were going to do a Quark like nibble on his ear type thing, or some weird,
Oh,
some
don't
weird
worry.
fetish
We're
thing.
gonna we're gonna learn a lot about Centauri sex practices and
Oh,
the
okay.
weird
Yeah,
configuration of their genitalia. Don't worry.
oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I knew something was coming with that, especially with the episode where I think it was the second episode where he the purple file, I believe it was called.
Or Born
Uh,
to the Purple, something like that.
Born to the Purple. Yeah, where he has the dancer try to get the purple file from him, the information. That was my I was just waiting for something to happen there, like something weird, but it didn't. Apparently, as of right now, they reproduce, looks like the same way humans do. Um, but then,
Yeah,
yeah, but then the other thing though is some of the stuff. It just Babylon 5 to me looks cheaper. That's one huge difference I've noticed so far, just with those 4 episodes. I guess is what I'm getting to. But so far, I'm enjoying it. there are definitely some pretty obvious comparisons to be made between characters.
Yeah, no, good stuff, good stuff. And so I think we're hoping that's one of the hooks of the podcast is that we're both Babylon 5 newbies, and we're both apologists and devotees of DS9. And so, hopefully that'll give us a sort of interesting perspective on both series as we sort of watch and rewatch them. And, we'll hopefully save this from just being like a boring fan podcast where two white bros recite the plot of some pop culture from 30 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. That doesn't sound very fun or interesting.
Yeah. So I'm not that familiar with Babylon 5 either. I don't think I'd ever seen an episode before a couple of years ago, although I think I did see they did a very short-lived spinoff on TNT called Crusade, and I think we would have been 14 or so when that premiered. And
wow.
I think I saw the pilot, but didn't see anything else because as the Zoomer listeners do not know or may not know, it was very hard to keep up with television in our teenage years. I wasn't able back in the day to watch that many DS9 episodes either because they came on pretty early, on a Saturday morning on
they came on it was a Sunday morning.
It was a Sunday.
That was the worst part. Sunday morning at 9:00 on CBS.
Oh, I thought it was even earlier. I thought it was more like 7 a.m. or something.
Well, no, 9:00. But you could also, if you stayed up really late on Saturday night, I think they came on at 1 a.m., which I guess tells you something about the show. Yeah, it was insane. DS9, of course, was on CBS, but Babylon 5 was on TNT, correct?
I'm actually not sure if Babylon 5 was on TNT. That's something I need to double check. I know the spinoff Crusade was on it, and I think the later seasons may have been, but I'm not sure if it started off on TNT. So that would be a factual thing I would want to double check.
I just feel like with Turner money, they could have done some more things than what they some better CGI in there. I don't know.
Well, I think the thing about the CGI was actually why the show was able to be made, because it was one of the earliest, I think, examples of such thoroughgoing CGI. And so they were able to kind of, take this relatively big risk on this kind of epic science fiction show with a lot of characters and a lot of world building. And one of the reasons they were able to do that is that the ships and the space battles were all CGI'd, unlike on DS9, which I think later in its run in the Dominion War started doing a little CGI, but early on I think is all models and matte paintings, in the kind of, in the same way that Next Generation and the original series were.
See, that makes a lot of sense then. Okay. So really that was cutting edge for the time, really, the way that looked, even though now when you look back at it when you look back at it, it looks awful. But back in the early 90s, that was probably amazing.
Well, this kind of brings up an interesting point in my own experience of Babylon 5 is that it's always something I'd thought about watching, but never had taken the time to run down the DVDs or anything. And then it showed up on Amazon Prime maybe 2 years ago. And I wound up watching the first season then. And I noticed how bad the CGI was then. But I think, and I'm not totally sure about this, I might be tricking myself with my memory, but I think the CGI we're seeing on the HBO Max release, which is how we're both watching it, I think that's actually restored or touched up CGI. So I think that's actually better than it originally was.
Yeah, I read that. I think it's supposed to be HD quality at this point or something. So that really is a remastered, I think is what they used. It's been remastered.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't know what that means, because they do the same thing to video games. And honestly, when I'm looking at it, I can't tell the difference. But that just might be my age showing. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I have a great eye for it either. And I may just be tricking myself, or this may be a sort of weird example, something like the Mandela effect. But I just seem to recall when I watched season 1 a couple of years ago on Prime, I think it looked worse. Although it didn't last that long on Prime, but I think I took a break after season 1 and was going back for season 2, and it was already off Prime totally, and so that my initial attempt was thwarted. So I don't really know that much about Babylon 5 either. I've seen more than you. I've seen the first season twice now, and I guess I'll have to watch it a third time because I'm some sort of masochist, and I've seen the first few.
Yeah, I'm somewhat dreading watching the first season of DS9. I don't have very fond memories of it, but I'll make it through somehow.
Yeah, we'll power through. Lots of laughs, lots of good times. And I mean, I will say I think both seasons are better than say the first season of The Next Generation. So
oh yeah, by a long shot, yes. Yes,
yeah.
way better.
So it could be a lot worse potentially. All right, so I guess we've kind of staked out our claim on Babylon 5, which is to say that we don't have that much of a claim, and we're sort of interested to see how it stacks up to one of our favorites. But do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with and fondness of DS9?
Sure. DS9 to me was all about the characters. Just the character building that takes place. I mean, from season one, which it's an awful season, but just building up the characters from there and then watching them actually grow throughout the seasons. That was what kind of kept me going. If you look at Next Generation, you don't notice much of a difference between the characters, and you may, but I don't. Between how they act in season one to where they are in the last season, there's not much development there. They're still the same people, and that. Would you agree with that or not? What do you think?
I think that's largely true. I think I don't know. I guess there are two partial exceptions to that. One exception would arguably be Data, although it's sort of like in some ways though, like even though like Data's arc is like, oh, he's growing, he's learning about humans, he's sort of the the next generation Spock. In other ways, he's not actually growing or changing that much. And season 7 Data isn't that different than season 1 Data, even though like his character is supposed to be like growing and developing.
I could see Data, and then like with the movies and everything, they really expanded on that.
Oh, but yeah, totally, with the emotion chip and all that. Yeah.
Right, but just the show, though, I don't. Okay, Picard, there is somewhat of a growth there when he becomes, a Borg, and then comes back from being a Borg. You see that, but like Riker is the only thing that really changed from him was his beard. Like he shaved off. He had no beard at the beginning. End of the thing, he's still second in command. He still doesn't want to go anywhere. Like he just.
Although in a weird way, and I think maybe this is my reading more of like the novels when we were kids, which we were both insufferable nerds and read a lot of novels. But like in a weird way, I think that does actually testify to some growth on Riker's part, because like the gimmick early right is like he's this really ambitious, hungry, like up and coming character, right? Like he wants to be like the youngest captain in Starfleet. And then we sort of, and I don't know that the show does a great job with this, but a thing that kind of implicitly comes out is that actually like Riker finds that like he likes his found family or he likes his friends on the Enterprise D more than he likes his ambition. So, he turns down all of these offers for promotion. I mean, I think he even turns down an offer to be a captain to become the first officer of the flagship. And then he repeatedly turns down promotions after he's the captain. After he's on the Enterprise D. And so in a way, it's like Riker sort of does, kind of grow to appreciate his friends and his coworkers more than his like own personal career ambitions. But that's not like a major thing.
Yeah, it's just not a major. I mean, he doesn't. I could see that. I don't specifically remember a lot of the that kind of development early on, but that may just be my memory. I will say this though: in all the books that come after the original run, don't they all basically become starship captains at some point? Like every one of them, even isn't Beverly Crusher a captain at some point?
I don't know. I haven't read that much of the novel verse. Interestingly, I think they're bringing the novel verse to a close. They just announced they're doing like a trilogy to like close that like post Nemesis, post DS9, post Voyager sort of novel verse. And I guess the thinking is with Picard and with Prodigy, which I guess is, has Janeway in it, is set sometime after Voyager, and with Lower Decks, which is set sometime after Nemesis, the thought process is that, this old like extended universe canon that the novels built up after Voyager and DS9 ended isn't valid anymore, isn't canonical anymore. I don't know that much about the novel verse. I know I know like Ezri Dax is a captain, and I know Riker is a captain. I don't really know beyond that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know I've read at least like half the crew ends up being a captain at some point of their own ship.
That is kind of fulfilling all good things, right? The series finale in Next
Yes,
Gen, where
yes.
we see her as a captain, Beverly Crusher, that is. Yeah. Well, the
Right, but
one
back,
other character growth in Next Gen I wanted to point to really briefly is that you were talking about like we kind of see this arc of like trauma and recovery from Picard, like we see him assimilated into the Borg. We see him
right.
tortured by the Cardassians. We see that episode, The Inner Light, where he has the experience of of life and death on this alien world.
The
Um,
inner light. No, that's an episode right there. You can show any person, and they have to like you have to cry just a little bit. That's like work of art right there. If you haven't seen the inner light, stop the podcast. Go watch it now. That's Star Trek at its finest.
I need to rewatch it because honestly, I saw it for the first time a few years ago because I'd watched a lot of Next Gen as a kid, but I'd never seen that one, and I
Yeah,
wasn't
well,
that
you probably wouldn't have
impressed.
liked it as a kid, but like as an adult, it's like, oh wow, that's got
Well,
a
as
deep
an adult,
message.
I didn't really like it either, but maybe I'm still essentially a childlike adult, and
Yeah,
that's
but,
why I didn't like it.
that probably explains it. Yeah, it's if you're an adult and can't cry at that, then there's just something wrong with you.
But I was just
I,
going to say on Picard, though, like you do see him sort of grow to become a little more warm and a little more accepting. Like you think of like the sort of cold, standoffish guy you see in the pilot Encounter at
yeah,
Farpoint,
yeah,
and then you
okay.
contrast
There's
that with
that.
All Good Things and him finally joining the officers' poker game.
That's what I was about to say. That's the only scene. Okay, yes, he goes and he joins the officers and play poker. That's the character development. That's,
Yeah, yeah, but we are really kind of straining to find character development in Next
yeah,
Gen,
yeah.
whereas like
You're having to pull out
almost
like
all DS9 characters have a really pretty
oh yeah,
clear
every
path.
episode you're going to learn something about somebody. You're going to find out more and more. I mean, every character has their own like huge backstory, and there's all this information that you have to keep, as you're watching. And I mean, it's almost like I know when I'm going back to rewatch DS9, I'm going to have to take some notes on each character just to keep up with what was going on with them, because I don't feel like you have to do that with a lot of the other shows. With DS9, there's just so much. It's but not necessarily in the early episodes. I'm not talking about that. I mean, but as you start to move into the war and everything like that, you really have to kind of keep up with what was going on and who who's doing what.
Yeah, my
Even
memory from my most recent or my only complete watch through, which was a few years ago. I'd seen, I just seen stuff here and there before that. My memory is it starts getting good like midway through season two, maybe.
yes, yeah, right around the time is it the when the Jem'Hadar show up? Is that
That's maybe it starts getting good a little before that. I mean, I guess we'll see. But my memory is it starts getting good a little before that, and then
okay?
because I think the Jem'Hadar show up only like a couple of episodes before the end of the season.
Overall, DS9, and then going back to my earlier argument, DS9's had some pretty good action figures. I will say this. I will say this though. I think Babylon 5 wins when it comes to action figures because looking at them, they had the character, and then they came with like a micro machine ship. So instead of coming with those accessories they used to come with, like they all came with like tricorders or phasers or whatever, like
Yeah.
crap you never use, like the actual Babylon 5, they would come with whatever ship the alien race was representing. So whatever you could have like space battles.
You didn't have to collect your action figures and your ship models.
Yeah, they didn't have to shell out money to buy all this when you could,
No,
But yeah, I just have I have fond memories of DS9 and just enjoying it and looking forward to watching it. Cisco's character is probably one of my favorites. Just the way he handles things and his leadership style, very very different compared to Janeway and Picard. Way different than Kirk.
Yeah. Sometimes in morally dubious ways, although not that Janeway, Picard, and Kirk don't all have their own kind of morally dubious moments. Yeah. And I mean, it does seem like 90s Star Trek doesn't get quite enough credit for like having Cisco be this pretty strong, aggressive black male captain, and then having Janeway be this pretty strong, aggressive, like white female captain on Voyager. It was something that was like handled like in a way I think that kind of like spoke to like the different experiences that African Americans might have or that women might have, but it was kind of presented in a matter of fact way that didn't didn't always like raise the hackles of like the kind of fans who were, resistant to hearing about things outside their own realm of experience. Did you see a fair amount of DS9 when we were kids? It sounds like.
I watched a lot of it. I would say I remember you actually had Emissary
I did,
on
yeah.
tape, if I remember right.
I had a box set of the pilots of I think the first three. I don't think Caretaker was in there for Voyager.
You did, yeah. You had it was either did you have the Cage or Man?
I think the box set had the Cage and Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot, and then I think I had a tape that I bought separately of the Man Trap.
That's
which was
right,
the first aired Star Trek episode.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I remember we had that, and then of course I had like Trouble with Triples, and that was about it. Yeah, I watched that, and then I watched, I would watch it every week. Especially, I know for sure I saw most of everything dealing with the war, and when Worf shows up later on, spoiler for anybody that hasn't watched the show. And then I watched all the way to the end. Like I know I watched to the finale, so really I watched probably season. That 3 through whenever it ended. For sure, I know I watched those as a kid.
Yeah, so I think you saw a lot more than I did. I think I saw bits of season 3 and season 4, and maybe bits of season 5, but I think I fell off at some point. Voyager was actually the one I watched a lot more faithfully because it was on. I think Wednesday evenings or Thursday evenings on.
Yeah, it was prime. It was prime time. I think at 9 o'clock on.
Yeah, 8 or 9 o'clock. Or something. Yeah. So Voyager was a lot easier to catch, whereas DS9 wasn't. I can't remember if I was still going to Sunday school at that point, but Sunday school might have been getting in the way of my Star Trek fix. Which, given that I've switched my religion from Sunday school to Star Trek, it's kind of ironic. Nice. Yeah. So I guess you'll have like a stronger childhood memories of this, which will be kind of interesting to revisit as we go too.
Yeah. And I do. The other thing I forgot to mention, they had that video game, and I swear, I'm telling you, video games and me, like I played the video game like to the death. There, that was a hard video game to play.
What was the video game? I don't know that I remember that at all.
It was like you played as. All I remember is you play as Cisco, like through the whole thing, and it's a side scroller. Oh. And you're like.
Was it like Sega or like Super NES? Or
it was Sega.
The Sega? Okay.
Yeah, it was something with the Prophets. I'll have to look it
up. Yeah, of course it's something with the Prophets.
Yeah, it's got, the title is weird. Like, you're like, what am I playing? But it was hard.
Yeah, because I remember, I think we both played a lot of like those point and click original series Star Trek games. I think there were two of them. Yeah. Like one was like the 25th anniversary game, and I forget what the other one was. And I think I vaguely remember like a Next Generation console game, but very vaguely.
Yeah, there was the Next Gen Sega Genesis game that was like the hardest game ever to play.
Nice. All right. So we're launching on this journey. We're going to go through one episode at a time of Babylon 5 and DS9 together. We'll talk about what synchronicities we'll see. We'll be on the watch for 90s nostalgia. We'll be on watch for 90s politics at the end of history. We'll be on the watch for conspiracy. We'll be on the watch for whatever else we think of. It should be fun. We hope people come along with us. Anything else you want to say on our way out, Matt?
No, I'm good to go. We'll look forward to it.
All right. We'll look forward to it. Peace.